If you have a large force for creation, you'll be met with a large force for destruction. This is from Barry Michaels. In today's podcast, what we're going to talk about is why leaders need to understand a part of themselves known as Part X. If you think about this, if you're a leader, you are most susceptible, more than anyone else in society, to an attack by an inner enemy, a self-saboteur. Now, the way I want you to think about this as we go through today's conversation is that if you're someone who's willing to lead, who's willing to do great things in the world, who's willing to be a force for growth and change, you're going to be met with an equal and opposing force, which is there to hold you back. And in this podcast, we're going to have a conversation about why it's so important for you as a leader to understand this. And then we're going to give you ways that you may be able to move forward and overcome this self-sabotaging force within you to be able to achieve what you want to in your work and in your life. You ready for this, Pete?
I am ready for it, mate. This is a great one. Leading teams myself, having led previous teams, having leading teams now. It's a fundamental thing for a leader to learn and to get to grips with and to come really aware of.
Yeah, and I think that this is a part of a two-part training where Pete and I were talking about what is it that we help guys do the best. And Pete is amazing at helping guys see a bigger vision, create a vision, step into that vision, actually operationalizing that vision. Now, as you do that as a leader, this brings up this self-sabotaging force. This, like, if you think about this, if you have big goals, if you have big projects, as you start to try and create those projects and goals, you get these behaviors, you get these patterns, you get these things that show up that are the resistance on the way. And my role and my coaching expertise is to help you overcome them in pursuit of that goal. So this is why we work so well together in terms of how we help men and women overcome these things. So what we're going to be covering in today's podcast is understand who the biggest enemy in your life is. It's you. It's not your competitors, it's not your family, it's not your parents, it's you. And we're going to learn how it might show up for you. And I can guarantee you'll resonate with one or maybe all of the symptoms and the patterns that are evident in the workshop. And the final thing I want you to do is learn about that there are tools that you can equip yourself in order to fight back against your inner enemy. We're not going to get onto the tools today, but just having the understanding that they do exist and there is somewhere that you can go and find them and get taught them and be able to use them. And I was coaching a guy this morning actually on a heroic man, and he did his first knockback in pursuing a new career, and he had to use a tool in order to get back up and go back into the next rejection, the next no. So really, really we're using these all the time in our programs. Do you want to share anything before we dive in, Pete?
Having built a business before, but also having been in the corporate world and getting myself into a leadership position in the corporate world, I was very unaware that this was even a thing. Like, I didn't know I had these blocks. I didn't know I had these resistance. I didn't know I had these self-sabotaging things. It just wasn't, I was just going with the flow. It was only when I had other people outside of me just highlighting, it's like, Pete, you got this behavior that has been running your life for the last 3 or 4 years or probably longer. And I'm like, oh yeah, didn't fucking see that.
Yeah, well, actually attest to that. It's higher level mind management. If you think about this, guys, if you're listening to this podcast, what me and Pete are going to talk about, we're talking about elite level mind management. You won't hear this.
This is advanced. It's very advanced.
Yeah, you're not going to get this from a generic coach who's going to, cheerlead you, celebrate your goals, and tell you well done. This is the product of having gone so deep into self-development. You start to unearth this stuff. So let's talk about Part X and leadership. So think about this. The basic premise for what is known as Part X, inner enemy, resistance, you'll hear us talk about it interchangeably in this podcast, is that Part X is a part of you which is there to X out your potential. So in the moments where you're most likely to move forward, you're most likely to grow, that you're most likely to do something great in your life, there's going to be moments where you're going to be flooded with behaviors, patterns, reactions to stop you from moving forwards. And if we can just assume that it's ever present in everyone. If everyone has this, not everyone notices it. Some people can move naturally through it, but I want you to think of a moment where you've been given an opportunity to speak on stage in your business. And you've either done something consciously where you've gone, no, I can't do this. I'm not good enough. I don't know enough. That's a conscious self-sabotaging moment. Or you've done something unconsciously. And it's being aware of both, but I would say my experience, it's more subconscious. It's more the stuff that goes on under the conscious behavior.
What's an example of something unconscious?
So what would happen is that you are about to, this is a minor one, you're about to go on a really, really important call. And just about 3 minutes before, I'll just make a cup of tea. And just making that cup of tea means you're going to be either on time or even a little bit late or stressed as you're just getting onto the call. So you arrive on that call in a flustered state. I get it all the freaking time. I'm driving somewhere. I was like, oh, do you know what? So I try to go and squeeze in a coffee. And I try and squeeze in a coffee knowing it's going to make me potentially late and then flustered and I'm not going to perform as well. There's another example of this is that you inherently know that you need to get up after a knockback. So say we're going to talk about this in a second. You get a no or rejection and you're a salesperson and you allow that to fester for the whole freaking day. And the day doesn't turn to a day, it turns into a week. You have a bad week and then you have a bad month. And you can't track it back to that one moment where you decided that knockback was a complete knockout. And so that's how it can go under the radar a little bit. So there's conscious and there's subconscious. Good point, Pete. Yeah. So if you think about as a leader, the people that lead teams, lead businesses, lead divisions, leaders need to do a number of things that make them the leader. And I'm going to walk through each of them and then Pete can give some examples as well. So leaders need to turn towards their challenges. So can we use today's example?
We can. we can use the example that happened just now.
Yeah. So hats off to Pete. We were just on a phone before we got into the podcast. He's trying to do something which is difficult, which is get a bank in Dubai.
It's very fucking difficult.
And in order for him to do this difficult thing, I've been through this process in Dubai. It's very difficult. And you have to constantly turn towards your challenges. It's every single time it seemingly feels impossible, you need to turn towards it, not run away. And this is what a leader needs to do. And this is probably the most important character trait of a leader. I just continually turn towards the challenges instead of run away. And if you think about that, as a leader, how many times have you been in that situation where, Pete, is it seemingly impossible right now?
Not now, because I've had some state change.
Okay.
Right. But however, fucking 30 minutes ago, it was seemingly impossible.
Yeah.
And I wanted to strangle every man in sight.
Oh, dude, I feel your pain. And we joke, but it's a challenge and you need to constantly turn towards that. And what Part X is probably doing for Pete in that moment is like, you're never going to get this bank. You can't get this sorted. It's seemingly impossible.
Wasted.
Why bother?
I've just been out here for 10 days to spend all this money, complete waste for a freaking trip. I'm flying home tomorrow.
Yeah,
not going to get it. All of these things coming up.
So if you can hear what he's saying, that's probably language that you've experienced before. Oh, you've done a 5-hour proposal. I did this the other week. Did a 5-hour proposals for some coaching with a business and I got a no. And then I got flooded with all this, never do it. What's the point? Just go back to do this. Don't do that. And so that is what a leader needs to do, turn towards a challenge. The next thing a leader needs to do is build and nurture relationships. Now, if you think about building a relationship is a massive, it's a growth experience. Like I found it moving to Dubai, starting a new business, is that you have to build relationships. Part X will sabotage you turning towards people by all sorts of weapons we're going to talk about in a second. But if you think about your role as a leader, your job is to nurture relationships. If you've got a mechanism inside of you which is stopping you from turning towards these relationships, making you feel lack or scarcity or lack of energy, you're not going to build those relationships and it won't let you grow. Now that's how our inner saboteur, our inner enemy, works against us. So that's a really important trait. And so these things that leaders need are most under attack by your inner saboteur. This making sense, Pete?
Makes complete sense.
Yeah.
I have seen from my own personal growth and my own business growth, and all the other guys that I'm buddies with that are leaders. It's all about interpersonal relationships, and the more that you can grow and harness your interpersonal relationships, is the more that it will affect your life in a positive way.
Yeah. Actually, when you're saying that, one of the biggest weapons we'll talk about is energy. And I didn't really understand this until this year, is that people with low energy haven't got the energy to create and build and nurture relationships. If you think about this, if you're listening or watching the podcast, is that when someone's got low energy, they don't return your calls. They're a terrible friend, co-worker, colleague. When you meet someone with high energy, they've got that ability to continuously turn towards the struggles and challenges of nurturing a relationship. So if you're a salesperson, if you're a leader of a business, if you're a manager, you need high energy. It's absolutely imperative. But what happens if there was a part of you that told you that you haven't got enough energy to get through the day, that you should cancel some of your calls? That is quite an insipid part of you that is there to, quote unquote, fuck your life up. So these are, I hope you, as we're building this case for why leaders need to know this, you're starting to see this. And this is, again, a trait for a leader is practicing delayed gratification. When you sit at your laptop to create something, it's hard. You've got to maintain your focus. You've got to have the ability to do deep work. You've got to stay in state. You've got to be mindful that there's going to be continuous emails pinging, text pinging, and you've got to be able to maintain focus. Now, a leader doesn't just need to be able to delay gratification in those moments. They've got to be willing to invest in people, knowing that the payout may not be until a couple of months, couple of years. Whereas Part X wants you to give into your impulses. It wants you to give into porn, scrolling, drinking, drugs, women, like all these things. It wants to sabotage your life that way. Because if it creates a self-gratifying life instead of a life where you restrain yourself, your discipline is fucked. So if Part X can get rid of your discipline in the micro moments, that's how it's going to inherently pull you down. Is making sense? Yeah.
Because if Part X can pull on your discipline in little moments, hey, I'm just going to quickly check social media, check LinkedIn, check Instagram. 30 minutes goes. I'll quickly go out and I'm going to eat some food over there. Don't eat some junk food. It's micro, but over the long term turns into the macro.
Absolutely. I think that's the biggest one at the moment, is that you check your phone for what you think is going to be a couple of seconds, 15 minutes goes.
Yeah, you actually forget what you were doing in the moment. It's like, I need to do that thing, and then you check your phone, and you distract onto something else, but that just becomes habitual, right? Yeah.
Daniel Goleman, famous psychologist, said the most valuable asset we have is our attention. And Part X does everything to take your attention out of the moment on something that's good and moves it to something that's unproductive. And that's our next one, is that you can be, if you think about this, if you're in a relationship with someone, you can say I have to do the dishes, and I start making this story up about Poppy, my partner, about how she's doing this or done this, and I start reacting emotionally to that. What kind of state, where's my focus and attention directly after that moment? It's in a really bad place. I'm not going to move forward. And that's another weapon of Part X. It's to flood you with unhelpful emotions, feelings, thoughts, and this victim narrative that the life isn't fair. And so what we want to do as leaders is have a way to overcome those things, spot them in their tracks, and fight back. Making sense? We're good? Yeah. Okay, so Part X creates a victim narrative that life isn't fair. So not only do you just get a rejection when you don't get that sale, it's like, Facebook has singled you out as someone whose ads aren't going to work. It could be that you are never going to get that job because you're a white middle-class man in a certain country. It could be that specifically you are never going to get that target for your fitness because your genes are fucked. That's what Part X wants to do, create this victim narrative that life isn't fair and the odds are always going to be stacked against you.
Yeah, and I think what the important thing to note here is that the victim mindset isn't like whole of life, I'm a fucking victim. It's not. It's just, I mean, it can be. You can take up a chunk of your life, but it's just in particular areas. So it just like hones in on a particular area, but you might not classify yourself as a victim.
No, and I think you put it, we talked about this last time you were over here, is that you had some victim thinking.
Yes.
The way that you talked about that was really powerful. It's like, I had some victim thinking in this specific area. And I think we said, oh, in my fitness, I had this ownership mindset, but in this one specific area, I had a bit of victim thinking. And that's probably more likely if you're a leader and you've got all the stuff together, there's going to be one area of your life where you haven't got it together. And that's where I'm going to take a guess where your victim thinking might be. Mm-hmm. And so if you're listening to this, and there's no such thing as perfect people. No one's got it all together. And the nature of Part X is it will focus on that one area and point to that even when everything else is going well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is really like you go on stage to receive an award for your company, but you're not in shape. And so guess what you focus on? Oh my God, I look fat and that sucks.
Yeah.
I think I've been there with that one. It cannibalizes your relationships by telling you don't have enough energy or villainizes people you care about. We just talked about that. I've been in situations where I've even told Pete, he's been the villain in my head, or Yassine's been the villain in my head. And it's not that I have any hate or disdain for them. It's that this part of me wants to A, blame, but B, make me so toxic that I can't move forwards with that relationship because it grows me. And like this has been so free in learning this for me. It's like, right, okay, well, I've actually and it's normally the people you care about the most that get villainized.
So just to go slower on that, it's like that toxic inner self-talk, right? Just fucking floods your brain, floods your mind with only those thoughts, and then you actually can't see the way forward or the multiple ways forward or any forms of solutions because it's just flooded with that. And that can be in your business, it could be in relationship with your wife or partner, whatever that looks like. Most
likely to be that. Yeah, absolutely. And it's quite funny because I write these things down so as we're going through this training, they're already in my head. I know this in and out, but this is to make it sequential for you, the listener. And this is something that actually was really, really pertinent, is like Part X tells you that there's more value in comfort than in challenge. So what this looks like is when you roll back the covers in the morning and you know that the good thing to do, the challenging thing to do is to go and get out into the gym or go for a run. And it's the part of you that it feels like an ally in the moment, and it says, hey Pete, just go on, chill out, chill buddy, you just chill with Thor in the bed, you work hard. But it's the very same part of you that goes, you lazy piece of shit, I can't believe you didn't train this morning.
Yeah.
And so that's really common. I've seen that quite frequently. And when you learn that's like, I can see you now. And that's the big part for a lot of clients who see it and spot it. They can label that. They don't see that part of them that's driving for comfort as an ally anymore. They see it as an enemy. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so if the biggest enemy in your life is Part X, why is it there? And this is a question I often get from leaders and people like, well, I get it. And actually we don't, sometimes the evidence is there for it. Why is it there? Why is there this destructive part of us? And the explanation I've come to and been given and really got to the conclusion of, it's there to keep us sane and safe. Now, albeit it's uncomfortable, it's frustrating. I know that frustration because it was the same as yesterday. So in those moments where I can grow and I can change my life, if there's a part of me that can cannibalize that, I don't move forward, I don't grow. And my life stays the same, but at least it stays the same and I know that safety. And our brain is wired for survive over thrive. So even if it's uncomfortable, I know that pain and I can repeat that pain because I survived this day. So That makes perfect sense to me when I learned that as well. So if you think about your brain, it's there to keep you sane and safe, and you've got to break that pattern. Cool? Be good?
Makes sense.
Okay, so how does a leader experience Part X? We're going to work through 4 main symptoms. So these are the 4 main symptoms you're likely to have experience where Part X is stealing your attention. The first one being impulses. And we talked about this one before. It floods you with impulses right in the moment that you're going to do something creative. Normally creative expression, or it could be where you most need to grow. Now, this could be when you're about to write a document. Mine's definitely when I'm writing these kind of trainings, I just get a desire to scroll. It used to be watching porn. I quit porn, and now it's scrolling. And so you've got to be really, really clever. And I see that now, and I've done a lot of work where I can have my phone next to me and still carry on. But if I'm tired, if I'm lonely, I'm just like, it's a path of least resistance. But these seem seemingly inconsequential. Jerking off, gambling, drinking, could be excess caffeine, it can be drugs, it can be Tinder. Like Tinder, if you think about how long you can end up scrolling on Tinder. I've never been on Tinder, but I can imagine that would be an absolute field day. You talked about this actually, didn't you?
I talked about it because when I split up from my ex-wife, I used Tinder as a form of numbing, and I caught myself and I was like, "Fucking hell, Pete!" Just swipe, hours on it. It was just a form of fucking. It was like another vice. I just found another vice.
Impulse, yeah, and that's Pete mentioned vices. Actually, we talked a lot about this the other week. It's a vice is. Can you clarify that? You had a good definition of it.
A vice is something that you cannot self-restrain from.
There we go.
That you have the urge and you cannot self-restrain it. And the second part of that is that the vice, although feel good in the moment, it will take away from your future. Perfect.
And this is how it does it. Every time you give into that vice, you have a hole for that vice. So whether it's the porn hole, the Tinder hole, the drinking hole inside of you, you're continuously trying to dip into the outside world to fill that hole, that void. Now, what the tools that we use, we teach men that hole, they're never going to be filled from the outside world, and then they've already got everything they ever need. And the process is helping them see that when they feel the impulse to dip into the outside world, watch the porn, have the drink, have some excess caffeine, they've got to turn their attention back inside and remind themselves they've got everything they need. And that tool then creates more energy to turn back towards the thing that they need to focus on. So that's the first one. The second one is hopelessness. I can't say that. I really struggle to say that word. Knockback versus knockout. And this is what happened maybe for you today, Pete, maybe for the guy on the call this morning, is that in that moment, we confuse a knockback, which is going to happen, with a complete knockout. This guy wanted to leave his university degree this morning. He came on, maybe I'm not on the right degree, I should give up this whole career, because he got one rejection, one no. And on the call, we walked through how to turn towards his challenges. So this could be a business deal that hasn't gone the right way. This could be a sale that you thought was going to process and it didn't. And it's important to know how to turn towards your challenges. So hopelessness, I can't say that word, is where sometimes you'll spend moments, hours, weeks, months licking your wounds. And it's the ability to get knocked down and get back up quicker. Yeah. So another way this works is that you get a fail and you believe that there's no path forwards. Like we talk about Pete registering for a bank in Dubai this morning, and I had that same situation. Like, I'm never going to get this done. And Part X just keeps giving this narrative like, hey, you're never going to get this done. It's seemingly impossible. Give up now. It's easier. It's easier to give up now. And actually, that's the thing you need to do in that moment is turn back towards it. Awesome. So we've got impulse, we've got hopelessness, and the next one is energy. You won't have the energy you need. Now, what your inner saboteur does is it wants you to confuse the things that give you energy with things that take it away. This might look like forgoing a workout, or connecting with a friend, or something like doing work, it tells you that these things take away from you. Don't go and meet with the guys tonight, Pete. Just stay on the sofa, eat some pizza. You'll feel way better. When you know going to meet that group of guys is going to give you energy. Oh, don't do that work. You're too tired. Just chill. And actually, you do the work. You feel like, I feel pretty good now. Yeah, like even today with the podcast, we're like, right, I feel energized doing this work. And just before it, I was on a bit of just done a presentation to a company this morning, had a bit of an energy low, and I was like, okay, oh gosh, I don't want to be low energy doing this podcast. As soon as we started, it's giving me more energy. Yeah. So what we need to be able to do is access not physical energy, and I never thought I'd be ever talking about this as a scientist, but spiritual energy. Yes. Now, my background is high-level sports performance. I never would have told you that I would be talking about spiritual energy. And it's turning towards our challenges. It's turning towards the things that are helping us gain energy. And it's not just diet and exercise and sleep, which is imperative, which we do tackle with guys. It's the whole thing. It's like turning towards your challenges actually gives you energy, not taking you away. You got anything to share on that one?
No.
You good?
I'm good.
Yeah. And the final one is we hold on to negative emotion way longer than we need to. And this is where you have an experience with someone, you can even resolve the problem, but the emotion hangs around way after. And for guys, this will show up as resent, anger, frustration, rage. It can be hate. And all that does is erodes your attention, your focus. So that means that you can't move forwards. So what you've got to be very, very good at doing is noticing that in the moment. And having a method, having a tool to take that away. So they're the four main symptoms: energy, impulse, hopelessness, and emotion that sticks around. So quick summary, as a leader, you're most susceptible to these weapons. You need to be able to create anti-fragility to turn towards your challenges. You need to have the ability to let go of helpful emotions. And as leaders, Pete and I both experienced that. And when we learned these tools and when we learned these principles, we started to think, all right, well, actually, we can help guys. And I think the biggest thing that we help guys with is not that they don't experience them anymore, because we're human and we're going to experience all of those pitfalls, those struggles. But what happens is you move through them ridiculously quick. That guy this morning who had that challenge, that knockback, he could have been licking his wounds for days, weeks. He's now back in asking for new opportunities. And that's the thing, is you speed up knowing these tools. So how do you fight back? You need to reclaim your state in the moment. You need a tool that help you reclaim your state and your attention and your focus. And there's a famous Hollywood psychotherapist that's worked with the likes of Joaquin Phoenix, with Jay-Z, like all sorts of high-level, high-performing men and women. And he created a set of tools that help them reclaim the state in the moment. And what we've done is we've built a framework and a process where guys can learn first and foremost to spot part X in its tracks. So the first thing we need to do is we need to label your part X. So that's what we help guys do. We help them label how their inner saboteur is actually stopping them from moving forwards in their life. And it could be one of the aforementioned experiences. The second thing is that then what we help them do is learn the specific tool that's going to help them. And this isn't, it's a very, very quick process, but it may take them a couple of weeks to learn and implement. And this is the thing, it works quick, but it compounds even faster. And then the third thing is learning to spot opportunities where they won't go into those kind of feelings. So they start to create their life with boundaries, with surrounding themselves with the right guys. So they're not having to fight their inner demon as much. And that's when they really get into some serious momentum. So we've taken the concepts from the highest performing psychologists, psychotherapists in the world. We've married it with pragmatic coaching steps. And we've created a system that we help guys on Awaken Man and our Heroic Man as well. And so just to conclude, if you're a leader and you're looking to fight your inner enemy, you're looking to fight this part of you that's held you back in the past, all you need to do is, after listening to this workshop, is to get in touch with us. How would you recommend I do that, Pete?
I would send a DM to either you on LinkedIn or Instagram, or to the Awaken Man page. We'll put a little button with a link underneath this.
Yeah, so hopefully just listening to this workshop today, you'll have some idea of spotting this part of you and labeling it. And if you want to take the next steps, simply just reach out. Thanks for listening.